So in this video, I'll be showing you how to use some disc cutters to make some very quick pieces and cut back on your cleanup and drilling. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go over just the circle one first, and then I'll show you some stuff with the oval one, but the circle one is a lot more versatile for different things. So that's why I'm starting here. So in the kits that you would get, basically this is everything that would come besides the hammer, unless you order the hammer with it, which is an additional fee, but well worth it instead of having to go find another hammer. Speaking of that, you have to use a brass mallet hammer thing like this, or you will start marring up the ends of these, or in some cases you can, I guess, shatter them, because this is hardened steel and you're hitting it with more hardened steel and it tends to be brittle and shatter or chip. So what you can do with this is basically make circles very fast, because all you need to do is grab your material, put it inside of it, hammer it, and you have a circle. So you can make something like this, which is just me randomly cutting out pieces, but you can get an idea for patterns that you can make with this. You can also make custom washers if you needed to, or for certain jewelry designs, washers actually look very nice, depending on the size and how they are put together. And that's basically where all of these little pointy boys come in. So you can see that it's basically just a cylinder with a point on it. These are centers. So let's just, for example, show. This will actually move this to center with everything because of just how it's designed. So enough talking, let me show you it actually doing something. So all of it is stored inside of that, and this is basically your main unit here. It is spring loaded, so you unscrew the middle and it will start to separate. And then vice versa, you tighten it down and it will tighten on your metals. It comes with this red sheet here. So it's basically just a plastic sheet, so you're not going to be marring up your table or marring up this with your table, depending on what your table's made out of or what's in your table. So this deals with sheet metals, and you can do up to a pretty thick sheet metal, but you probably can't do it by hand, and it depends on what metal you're using. So if you're using brass, that is one of the harder metals for this to get through, but it can, and I've used some 18 gauge and it was able to get through it, but I had to hit it a couple times. If you have silver or copper, it goes right through it pretty much instantly. You can use this with a hydraulic press. So you can, if you're using really thick metal, you can press it through. But I'm not going to be showing that or doing that. So I have a sheet of copper here. And this sheet of copper, I believe, is 22 gauge. And I'm going to make a 1-inch circle with it. So all you really need to do is open this up enough for your sheet to fit inside. And what I'm going to do is get it close enough to the corner where you don't see any gaps. So I'm wasting less material this way. And then just tighten it down. You can put another piece of the same thickness metal on the other side to make sure this thing is 100% even, but it honestly doesn't matter for most of the things. Next, I'm going to take the punch. And you'll notice something kind of weird with the punch. If you look at it, it's slanted. And the reason for that is it's basically touching at one point and then going all the way around, which makes it cut even and cut easily. This is a same size punch from a different kit that is really low quality. And it also is completely flat and very hard to cut through stuff. Other thing is, you can actually see that it has a dent in it already. I'll go over this kit and show you what not to get or what not to look for when looking at your options for disc cutters. Alright, so I'm just going to use some of the cut lube on here to make it a little bit easier on the tools and set it in there like that. Now you just need to hammer this And it's going to get real shaky because my camera is attached to the table I'm hammering on. So sorry in advance for how shaky this is going to be, but you just want to take your hammer and get a good whack in. You do not want to keep your fingers here to hold this in place or anything like that, because as soon as this drops down, you're going to smash your fingers. And there goes all the pieces. And there we go. So now when it's like this, I always like to try to pull up on this, and I forget that that's not how you do that. But what you actually need to do is just pick the whole thing up. And there we go. We have a perfect circle in a couple seconds. And then to release your actual metal, just unscrew the top and pull it out. And you can see it left a perfect circle behind too, which I could have got a little bit closer at the top here, but that should be fine. So now that I have this little circle here, you can do some other things with it, like if we wanted to make it into a moon shape. So all I'm going to do is take it and put it back into here. The problem with this is you can't really get your fingers in there to move it. What I found is if you have a small metal ruler, or you can use the actual metal that you cut it out of to move it around. I'm just going to use my little ruler and my finger and try to get this in there like that. So I can see what my moon shape is going to look like based on the outside here, and this is the same size hole that I cut this out of. So I'll just do that and then do this again and then just hit it with the hammer. And yeah, that time it pulled straight out, but normally just pick up the entire thing. Like I said, I have a really bad habit of just pulling these straight up out of it. So as you can see, this is not a moon. So you have to release this. And there we go. You could basically just clean up the edges on this a little bit because it will have a tiny burr, but any type of polishing will take that off. And you have a perfectly cut moon in seconds instead of putting a stencil on your metal and sawing this out and then having to clean it up and make sure the curve is good. So that's one very useful thing. So another thing is, say I need a hole in this. Okay, so another thing is, imagine I need a hole in this, about right here. Well, if I wanted it to be a 3mm hole, which is the smallest this can do, I can just place this in here. The only problem with that particular one is lining this up with that hole is very hard. But I think I got it. If not, it's a practice piece, but it'll get it across what I'm trying to explain. So that's in there. So I'm just going to take the smallest one. There you go. You have a perfect hole in it. And you can do this as many times as you like throughout the entire thing to add pattern, or just the one time so you can put a jump ring through it. It's really up to you. So when it comes to making washers like this, let me show you how that's done. So what I'm going to do is take my metal and find the smallest hole that I want for this, and then do that one first. So say I want it to be a 1/8 or 3mm hole. I do that first. So there we go, we have our hole. So now I can just take that hole and figure out which one of these I need my washer to be. So that looks a little off. Let's go with that one. I'm going to tighten this down just a little bit so it's kind of snug on it, but it can still move. And I'm going to purposely put it off to the side like so. So it's not centered in there at all. Then I'm going to find the right one of these to go in that hole, which I grabbed the right one right away. You'll see that it's kind of over. If you push it down and kind of straighten it out, it will move the metal around and it'll be completely centered. Then you can tighten this down. So you have one of these for every hole besides the last one. And the reason why you don't have the last one is because there's no smaller hole, so that wouldn't be possible to center it like that. Now that that's all nice and tightened up, I can punch that out. So there we go, we have our little washer. And that's not even the smallest one you can do, but when you're doing them this small, they get a little weird. You'll also notice that you're making a ton of these little circles too, whenever you're doing the punching. And these can be used to make very interesting patterns or just add them to accents of pieces. So I just keep these. All right, so let me explain some of the cheaper options of these that just do not work for this, and I don't know why they actually make them. So this is one of them, and let me take the whole thing out of its little carrier. So do not buy one of these. You can get these at Harbor Freight and stuff like that for $10 to $40 depending on the set. These are terrible. So let me take all these out so I can actually move this around. All right, so one thing you might notice already on this is it has bolts in the center, and this has a basically screw that you can open and close. This is fixed. And being fixed, you have to deal with this gap here. So if you put a piece of metal in here, it can move around on you. Also, like I was saying before, these are cut at an angle, so they will actually cut through the piece easily, starting from here and going around. This is just trying to force the entire thing at once. So that makes it a lot harder to go through the metal. So let me show you what this does. So as you can see, it's not really doing all that much yet. And if you look on the bottom, it's starting to go. So let's just keep going and hopefully more stuff doesn't fall off my desk. All right, there we go. And this is now stuck. So if you look at the metal here, this is the one done with the Pepe tool, and this is the one done with the random generic one. It actually bent the metal up because there's so much of a space there, and it skipped here a little bit. So here's the piece that I cut out, and the edges are really sharp and don't really look that nice. It did cut the circle out, but you're going to have to clean up these edges completely now. And for a quick example of the difference. So, big difference in how much work goes into it and then how much cleanup is needed afterwards. So, yeah, don't buy the cheap ones unless you are ready to do a bunch of cleanup and get some like bent pieces out of it. The other thing too is, see how close you can get to an edge and it still cuts it out perfectly? You cannot do that with the other one. It will just start folding it under. Yeah, the only thing I wish that the PepeTools one came with that doesn't is something to hold these things in. Because they kind of just go into a bag, or you have them all over the place like this and they fall over. So, that being said, I'm going to design a holder for this that can be 3D printed, and I will leave a link in the description. Or if you want to get one from me, let me know, and I can print one and send it off to you, if you happen to have one of these, or plan on getting one. So here's our oval setup, and this is good for cutting out pieces for setting stones, or making rings that need a large oval or exact oval, and these are in common sizes. So it's the same design as the circle one. They have an angle in them to cut really nicely. It's used exactly the same as the other one, but I will cut one out just to show you. Let's go with the biggest one. So I'll just take the biggest cutter, make sure it fits that hole, which it does. Then run the lube over it and just set it in there like so. And then just hit it with a hammer. So there we go. We have a perfect oval in a couple seconds. All right, so with all of that said, yes, you can just do all your sawing work and be done with it and do all the stuff I just showed you, but it takes way longer. So if you are trying to speed up your work or just make perfect cuts every time, I would invest in one of these. But these are kind of expensive for most people. I know that a $225 tool is not just something that you can go out and buy, or a lot of people can. You can use my code on these if you'd like, and it helps the channel, and it saves you $30 on anything over $100 on the PepeTools website. So this would take it down to, what was it, $195 for this one? So it's still a lot, I understand. But, so you can see the versatility of the circle one, because you can do a bunch of stuff and make patterns and all that stuff. I'm going to show in a build video of a new ring that I thought of a little bit ago using these and how you can make all the parts really quick. But yeah, it's really up to you and your budget. So for sure, do not buy one of these if you need any type of things made because you're still going to have to clean it all up and it's not going to be as nearly as nice as if you could have just sawed it out. So I feel like I'm rambling now, so thank you again PepeTools for sending me these. They sent these to me free of charge, but they didn't pay me to say anything nice about them, just my actual opinions, and I came up with everything else on my own. So if you have any questions or anything like that, leave a comment, and if you like this video, leave a like, and subscribe if you want more videos from me, and to see that new video showing how to use all these little parts to make an awesome looking ring. Well, that's about it. See you guys next time. Bye.